Hello guys and girls, and welcome to the Level Design Lobby. Hello everyone, and welcome to, I believe it's now, the 9th episode of the Level Design Lobby, where I have Stu, very silent. Stu. It's my accent, don't mock me. I've got two, people mocking my accent. So I got some amazing guests here joining me today. Not one, but like I said, Stu with us. So shall we introduce ourselves to the lovely people?
Well, I'm Ward Lindhout. I'm a concept artist. We work together, don't we, Max?
Couldn't sound more menacing if you tried. Yes, we do. Please send help. I'm being held hostage. Yes, we do. And now for our other giggling guests to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Marta Jonkers. I'm from the Netherlands, just as Ward. And I also work with Max. Yay!
It's less menacing as she says.
Yeah. It's a good cop, bad cop kind of vibe we got going on here today. So I've brought these two giggling and menacing and lovely people on for many reasons, but the main reason is to chat about working with them in video games and their careers going through the time. Have a good laugh that we're currently doing non-stop. You two are concept artists, and how long have you guys been concept artists now?
Well, the concept part for 5 years, professional, in-house, before that a little bit freelance, artist all my life. That didn't sound cheesy at all.
You captured it. Don't worry, you captured it.
Holy shit, yeah.
He's also a part-time actor as well.
But we started working in-house concept artist 5 years ago. Should I spoil?
No, it's fine. You could say where you've worked before we got here. So
because we worked in Japan before.
His first one was good.
Yeah, but we worked in Japan for 5 years. I worked at Capcom, where I worked on Street Fighter and Dragon's Dogma and the new Monster Hunter World as a concept artist. And Ward also worked in Japan.
I started out at Tango Gameworks, working on The Evil Within. And after that, I transferred to Capcom as well, and I worked on Resident Evil 7.
Resident Evil. I feel we could
Biohazard.
It's actually called Biohazard in Japan, though.
Yeah, but so 7 was called Resident Evil Biohazard.
And in Japan it was called Biohazard Resident Evil. So that was
It was the
genius,
making. Exactly. Came together well.
Finally came together. Yeah.
So I guess my first question for you guys really is what got you into doing concepts like art? What was it that made you guys want to do this?
Well, so actually after high school I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
You're a true artist, struggling from the inside.
Yeah. So I did something totally unrelated, which was chemistry, actually, because.
Right.
But I just chose that because it was the course in which I had the best grades.
Yeah.
I always loved drawing, but I never saw it as something you could do as a profession. And then at one point I was so I also loved games. And there's this concept artist called Feng Zhu, and he had this website way back about how to draw concept art for games. And for me, that was really the point where I finally realized that wow, actually, I can also do what I love doing as a profession instead of chemistry, which was kind of boring.
No offense to any chemistry.
For me it was sort of the same actually, because I've always liked drawing and designing, and I always did that, but Then I also liked history, so I studied archaeology.
Oh, right.
And I graduated, and I thought, wait, but I don't want to become an archaeologist. What now? And then actually they started in Holland with a course called Game Design and Development, and it was really new in art school. And I thought, wow, that's like all my passions into one. It's like I could do this, and I started studying game design and development, and there I learned about concept art, and it all came together, and I thought, well, this is what I'm gonna do.
Awesome. So a very similar sort of.
Yeah, but I guess when we were young, like concept art was really just starting. Now it's really big, I think.
Yes, like in terms of courses, for sure. Like the amount of games courses nowadays is. And
it's really it's a job that people know about, and when we were studying, it was just beginning, and
and
so
also,
it wasn't really an option.
So we both studied game design and development in Holland. And it was very broad, so you would learn like programming, 3D modeling, level design, game design, like everything basically. So it wasn't really focused. I mean, it had some good things on like the general like design thinking and stuff like that. But actually, one of the reasons we wanted to go to Japan was so we could do an exchange with a Japanese university in Kyoto. And they were like way more traditional in like art.
Went there and we studied manga for half a year, and the classes were awesome. It was so technical, and we learned to draw, and it was super cool. And combined with our education in Holland, which was all about level design and game ideas, that kind of blended together like into the concept art skill for us.
That's really cool. So then I guess for some of the listeners who might not know this, because many people just think you guys just draw pretty pictures, because obviously at the end of a game there's these massive art books which is generally filled with all the concept art. So I think it's because obviously I work with you guys, I know it's not just draw pretty pictures and that's the end of it. Like, so do you guys want to like talk about what is it you actually do, because it's more than just that?
We actually design like the environments, characters, enemies, weapons, vehicles, everything you see in the game that needs to be designed. That's what we do. So that's also pretty pictures sometimes, but it's also like technical designs, front views, side views, detailed designs, paint overs. It's just we are like the problem solvers in the process. Our work is really early in the game design process. When you make a game, you always start with the concept art. We come up with all these ideas, we send that to the other departments like level design. You guys see these ideas, you come up with locations, you give it back to us, and then we draw detailed versions of those locations, and it goes back and forth until we have like a plan for the game. And
before you get to these pretty pictures that end up in the art books, for example, there's like a long process of like generating all kinds of ideas and going back and forth with like the art director and the level design team, the writers, the game design team. So we are kind of like the spider in the web kind of thing. I mean, because you communicate with like a lot of different teams. Yeah,
and it's easier to communicate with an image than just talk about or making schematics or something. If you have an image, then everyone knows what it's about, and everyone knows, oh, that's the atmosphere, that's the direction we're going. So our task is sort of also to be the glue between all the departments.
And sometimes, for example, concept art is not only a solution, it's also like a question. It's like...
It just got real deep in here, by the way.
No, but actually, like, because when people are talking about things, like, everyone has a different image in their head. So when you want to pitch something to, like, the director, you're not only saying, like, is this a good design? You're also saying, like, do you want this? Are we going into this direction? Or... is it not a good direction? So it's kind of like a conversation starter in a way.
No, I think that's it. And like, I think it's nice for you guys to get that out there, because when I was studying, back when I was doing university, a similar style course to what you guys did, people don't realise like that's it. concept art is also about raising questions as much as it is answering questions, and I think that's an important part to get across to people as well. I'm glad you guys also said spider in the web. Which one said that?
That was me.
So humble too. But like,
I didn't even know if it was like an English expression. I mean, we use it in Dutch, but
I could tell it was a Dutch expression straight away. Don't worry. I was like, idiots. No, so I think that moves on to the next one. Is like with that, you guys work with a lot of teams, and so like, I guess it depends on the stage of the project, but like which teams do you guys communicate with the most then? Like, is there...
Well, it does depend on the stage of the process, because first we talk a lot with the writers who have usually a general idea of location or character, and they give us a description and then we can start working on it. But we also work a lot with level design, of course. Back and
level
forth.
design, there's the most back and forth, I think.
Yeah.
Writers, they
give you
they
the
give
kickstart.
you the kickstart and let go, and then with the
Yeah.
level designers, it's more like a marriage almost.
Yeah.
You know? You gotta make it work together.
And like most marriages, ends in divorce. Everyone's happy. No, I think that's it. Like every company is obviously very different and stuff. So like how they do it, but like our relationship and stuff is. Man, that sounds really weird. When there's three of us here saying that, I'm not gonna lie. But like for us, like saying it's a very back and forth thing. It's about us communicating to one another what we need, and you guys have a different eye for different things compared to like what we as level designers look for. You know, I think that's one of the biggest things is like bringing that together on like. This is more. Well, I'm sure we've had many of debates and stuff about things, but
but I think debates are super good because they spark
it.
Yeah, and sometimes you get like a solution totally different than what you were thinking of at first.
Yeah.
For example, because you, as a level designer, come from a different discipline, you think differently. So. It's
like
very
the geniuses of the entire world, but it's details. No, but that's it. I think, like you say, like we have fresh eyes to help one another.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know, like seeing things from a different, perspective. You know, keeping it classy, stay classy. Level design lobby, stay classy. It's different stages as well. Like for example, you know, you guys will do either mood pieces. At a certain point, as well as designing things, and then you've got paint overs, which is some, you know, when you're more working with level design as well. So you guys got quite a different variation in terms of work as well.
Yeah, we actually have like basically 4 stages we work on, and the first one is really free. Nothing is decided yet, so we.
You can't see, but I'm smiling because they're chatting about freedom, but when they come to work with me, freedom's long gone and dead.
So wait, the first stage is really free.
Blue sky face.
Blue sky face.
Happiness and joy, puppies and rainbows.
But we can come up with ideas, and we're not like we have no restrictions.
Yeah.
We don't have to think about level design. We don't have to think about the gameplay. We just make cool pictures. That's a really cool phase. Yeah. But then we get sent to like level design, to story, and they look at it and they make something with it.
That's where the trouble begins.
That's when it gets tricky. Then we get it back from you guys. Yeah. You say no, this has to be changed because you know.
You guys actually have to think about it.
It's looking cool. It can't just look cool. It has to work. So, and then we make additional designs that are more detailed and more working, and we think more about how it works in the game. Then it goes back to you guys again. You build it.
Yes.
Yeah, like you make a block out, send it back to us.
We try to stick to your concepts, but then we...
You never do.
No, exactly. That's why I said the key word there was try.
So you send us back the block outs, and we do paint overs, which has to look very close to what it will look like in the game. Yeah. So the lighting and the mood has to be like spot on.
And that's mainly to help with like environment art as well, you know, because you guys work with us as LDs before. before environment comes, so it helps them not just see blocks.
Exactly, and after that phase, we actually have to make very detailed design of the props and the walls and everything, so the modelers can use this to actually make it.
Especially if it goes, for example, if it's going to be outsourced, then you want like the communication to be super clear, so it has to be very detailed.
And that's really one of the most challenging stages in our work, the detailed designs, because it has to be right, and you can't make a mistake, you can't make it rough. You need to be very clear in your design, and that's the most the tough one. And
that's always like, you want the stuff that's coming back from outsourcing to look good, and then when you screwed up, if you have this like mistake that you could have been avoided because you drew it in a certain way. But also, like, even after that, like when the game is being more and more finished, there will be additional paint overs, because, for example, to figure out how the lighting is going to be improved, or what kind of effects can be
until the end, there will be like additional artwork needed for the
color correction, like we help with a lot of stuff actually
throughout the whole process,
not only pre-production but also way into production.
But I think that's an interesting one, because like, even like I've worked for about she's laughing because I don't really work, so so she doesn't like level design. Her true feelings have been shown. No, but like, I've worked on a fair few projects now, and I always did wonder what happened with concept, like right near the end.
What happened to us?
We kind of like just let you go or something.
No, like usually there's also going to be maybe marketing art. And all those, for example, those images in the art books, they need to be touched up so that they actually look good, and not like the quick scribbles that most of them.
The polishing of all the marketing stuff is in the end,
And it must be like, for you guys, because I know both of you have some of your work in some of these art books out there, like, it must be like super cool to see that. Yeah,
it's super cool, but usually it's work that's already like 2-3 years old, and then you look at it and you think, oh Jesus,
I could have done better.
I could have done so much better. No, it's really cool, it's really rewarding, but actually seeing the game, like, that's the most cool thing. Like, you designed some location, and suddenly you're at that stage and you can see the player walking around that environment that you designed. That's awesome. That's really fantastic.
I think that's one of the many reasons why we
do what we do.
Exactly. Thanks, Master Wolf. We're going to move on to the next topic, which I think is going to be really interesting to hear about. Because as you guys said at the beginning, you worked and lived in Japan for many years, and I guess my question for you and some of the other people who might be wondering, like, what are the differences of like making a video game from the West and the East? I know you can't go into too much detail due to NDAs, but
but
yes.
No, the process is really different in Japan compared to the West, and it's really interesting. We went to Japan actually also because we thought the video games there were really original. They were things we never seen before, and we wanted to know how they make those video games. How can they make it so original and weird and strange? And
which was the ones that made you go, like, what was the video games that made you go, like, we need to go here then? Like, what was it that hit?
I was really fan of Final Fantasy series. And Metal Gear,
Resident Evil.
Loved Odin Sphere, which was a beautifully drawn video game. Oh, I loved it so much. And all those games, Zelda, I mean, they're so
and
cool.
Shadow of the Colossus, there were lots of games we were really interested in.
And so that was one of the reasons we wanted to go to Japan and actually work there to kind of find out. And we did find out in those 5 years, because we did the whole process of a couple of video games from the beginning till the end. And we realized that the process in Japan is much more organic than it is in the West. Like here in the West, we have a really clear plan of what we're gonna do, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like we have a really clear schedule, but actually we do. There's really like these pre-production and production phases and post-production, but in Japan it's everything at the same time. So they can start building a level even though you're still in sort of officially in pre-production, or in like post-production there's still concept art that needs to be done. And because it's not so scheduled and it doesn't have a tight schedule, there's a lot of freedom for all these kind of different ideas at any stage. So they're always open for original ideas or whatever.
And there's always time, even after what we would call pre-production, to come up with new things. That's...
And I mean, it can be very stressful. I mean, because at one point you would like to have sort of locked content, like this is what the game's going to be like. But in Japan, you're not going to have that. That's going to be until the very end. There's going to be really big changes. But that's also why their games are so original. You never know in Japan what you're going to end up with when you start working on a video game.
Kind of like a more kind of like natural evolutionary process versus like a very planned out process. For example, when you want to design, let's say, a plane, you're gonna do some research and think of you make sketches, designs of a plane, and then you're gonna build a plane, and then you have a plane. But in Japan, it's almost more as if it's like how nature basically designs things through evolution. So nature didn't decide to come up with a lion. The process, because of
naturally
iterations, grew into what it is. So for example, the Evil Within, when we started out, was completely different game than what the end result was, and it really kind of grew, evolved into what it became. And that's something you see a lot there.
So that's one aspect which makes the Japanese video game so unique. And the other second very important one is that they don't really care, or they don't think too much about the audience or game journalists or reviews. They just make what they want to make. And so if someone likes the idea, then they will make it. And I think in the West we plan it much more like, will the player like this? Will the audience like this? Will they write a nice review for this? And so we tend to take less risk than they do in Japan, because they're just not really so worried about the audience. So that gives us sort of freedom there, but also a very big risk. Because their games can fail completely, or
like Nintendo is quite a good example.
Really good example,
because they every time they try something different. For example, the Wii was a big success, but the Wii U was actually a completely different type of machine with a different type of audience. And then now again the Switch is again different.
Just make
so sometimes
all the stuff and
they
throw it on the market and see how it goes. Instead of in the West where we think, what are we going to throw on the market? How will it do on the market? And if we think it's not going to do well, then we're not going to make it. That's sort of like in really broad lines.
And we iterate on like proven success. For example, Assassin's Creed, it always kind of has the same core.
It builds on the previous game, makes it better.
But like Final Fantasy, for example, it always has a different battle system. And if you compare Final Fantasy 11 to 12 to like the online one, 14.
11.
Oh, that's 11 was a lot. Yeah, or 11.
Or
So 11 to
9
12
is completely different.
and then 15 again is completely different. So that's just a different way of designing. And actually, it was kind of interesting. We had a chat with a car designer, a Japanese car designer who works for BMW.
Alright.
His name is Yoji Nagashima, I think. And
Shout out to Yoji.
shout out to Yoji. Yeah, he created the BMW Z3.
Okay.
So he's actually kind of like a high-profile guy. But he came to our university at the time, and he said like in cars it's the same, because for example, if you take like a BMW or a Mercedes, like you always know by looking at the car that you're dealing with a BMW or a Mercedes just by how it looks.
Yeah.
But Japanese cars, every time
Every
it's like
model
totally
is
different.
different.
Like, so you don't see like, oh, that's like a Toyota,
Yeah.
unless you look at the brand logo. So
And if you constantly make new things, then there's more opportunity for something original to be created.
yeah,
But there's
There's more
also a lot
risk.
of chance of
Yeah.
not original or weird stuff or
Yeah.
not working stuff to be created. So what I see it like, Japan is a very high risk, high originality place, and the West is much more low risk, high quality products, but you know, we try to make something that will work.
Yeah.
and also I think the time to make a product, because of this way of working, it's kind of chaotic.
In Japan, you
Yeah,
mean.
in Japan, so it takes more time than
Yeah.
it would take a Western.
So it's
studio
not
to
really
make a game.
efficient, and that's something to worry about for the Japanese game industry, is that their way of working is getting more and more expensive as games grow bigger and more spectacular. At one point, it's not gonna hold up. That process is just taking too long, too much risks.
Yeah.
So it's a thing that I was sort of worried about. It's not a problem yet, but I think in the future they will need to adjust their way of working to organize it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like From Software
Sacrifice a
seems
little
to be
bit.
doing a good job.
Yeah,
Like,
they are actually working in a
kind
sort
of like a
mixed
Western way, in a way.
Yeah.
but it's sort of mixed.
Yeah,
Because their concept is something that would never ever have been made
No.
in the West.
yeah, because producers
it's
would
so
say,
difficult.
Yeah.
So no one here would say like, oh yeah, sure.
Let's punish the player.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
publish this. Like everyone will like it. No.
Yeah.
So that was really Japanese of them to do. But they are really building on their previous games to improve the new ones. And so they are using that knowledge. So
and they're making them quite fast as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So they are like a very nice combination.
Mix, yeah.
Ooh. I'm gonna stop you there though, just because I'm getting sick of you.
That's so nice of you.
I love you,
Being
Max.
honest.
And this is like nothing
Yeah.
to what you say to us on a daily basis at work.
This is not how you do team bonding.
Yeah.
Don't listen to this. But no, because we have overran a bit.
Already?
Yeah.
I'm just getting started.
Loosening up.
I thought this was the practice round.
But before we finish on this topic, I do want to ask then like a couple questions, because it sounds like both have good points and both have bad points. And like, if you could take anything from the West and bring it to the East, what would it be? And then vice versa, if you take anything from the Eastern process and bring it over here to the West, what do you guys think it would be for you guys? Before do you go first?
I think what we should take from the West to Japan is a structured way of working, because you can just get much more stuff done, and it doesn't have to be as chaotic as it sometimes is, because I do think you can also kind of like manage time to be creative.
Yeah.
You don't always have to be super efficient. You can also
calculate some time
some
where
time.
you can experiment whatever you want, as long as it is calculated in some sort of schedule. I think for Japan that would be very, very nice if their way of working became more efficient.
Sorry, I don't know what that. Oh well, we'll figure out what that is another time. And what about you? What do you think you'd bring? Would it be structure as well, or?
I think also Japan would benefit if they did at least some research to what the player wants.
Okay.
I think now it's really focused on what the director wants or what like the game designer wants, and I think if they would combine their vision with what the public wants.
Yeah.
That if they could make stuff that's really successful.
Yeah.
So
And they do way too much overtime.
And that, we haven't talked about the work ethics, but that's another story.
I think I'll bring you back for that one. I think the game industry as a whole suffers from overtime, and there's
Yeah.
But especially in Japan, it's kind of like, it's not only the game industry, it's just like...
It's everywhere.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a big thing there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But thank you guys, honestly, for joining me. It's been good fun. I hope the listeners have enjoyed through our giggle fits and other embarrassing moments. And learn more about concept and how you guys work with level design, and also how the East works compared to the West. So thank you guys for joining us. Before we go and leave with so many more giggle fits, let the people know what you're doing. Is there anything you guys want to plug? Anything you want to shout out? How can our lovely listeners find out more about your artistic vision?
We have our art on ArtStation.
Awesome.
Yeah, should I tell the whole link?
You can say the whole link.
What was it again? Is it like ArtStation?
/artist.
artstation.com/artist/marteart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and mine is artstation.com/artist/art-by-word. But if you put my name, Woord Lindhout, or Marten Jonkers,
you guys
in
Google,
Google,
I'm not gonna lie, you guys, to you, your names may sound like the easiest thing, but no. Thank you guys again for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
We want to plug something.
Do you want to plug? Sorry, I cut them off. This is what I'm trying to kick them off. I'm like, can you just?
You don't
just
get
leave?
rid of us so easily. We also have like a photo blog we made in Japan with kind of like the neon
dark
gloomy side of Japan. It's called bitpunkbits.tumblr.com.
Yeah, check it
so
out.
we have a lot of cool photos there.
Awesome. I will put a link to all this in the description as well, so you don't need to worry about being embarrassed on how to spell their names. I can't even spell them. So the looks they gave me then was not impressed.
Yeah, we can spell Max.
I feel you guys got the easy one. But yes, again, thank you very much for joining us on the show, and thank you for listening. To show your support, please do subscribe to the show so that we know we're doing something right, and we will bring these two lovely people on again for another giggle fit and more. So thank you very much for joining us. Take care, guys, and we'll see you later.